I remember when I first started with meditation, I was reading, I think, Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, and he was interviewing these really cool people, and he kept asking, like, what's your most impactful habit? And people just kept saying meditation, transcendental meditation, like all these forms of meditation. I'm like, I should probably be doing this. Like these people are all doing, I'm gonna get it. And at the time I was that, kind of this, my athlete side was like, all right, I'm going to go crush this meditation. I had no idea meditation is not about crushing anything. It's not that at all. And so, but I was like, I'm going to go do it. And I didn't set it up. I was just like, other people are doing it. I should probably do it too. I mean, you might read this flag right up front. That's not a whole lot of purpose. That's something you should. Brain doesn't love should when you're busy. So I'll get back to that. But I just started to do it. And I started to show up every day. And it was interesting because it was more difficult than I thought. Like my mind was busier than I thought. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time, but I kept going. And this was super fascinating to me because I had heard like, oh, habits, people say, oh, 21 days. Some people say 28 days. Some people say 66 days. The longest that I heard at the time I was reading was 66. So I'm like, all right, I'm about to go do 66. I'll get past 66. It will become second nature and I'll be good. And so I started to do it. And I even got in like a month in, a little bit more probably. And I had a breakthrough. And it was such a cool experience. It's what you hear about in meditation sometimes, where all of a sudden your body, you got your breathing dialed in, your body's calm, your mind clears out. And I know now I was getting to a higher state. And it was this amazing stillness that I'd never experienced. It was mind boggling to me. And I went through and I got done. I knew two things from that moment. I'm like, one, I want to experience more of this. Number one. Number two, I think I've referenced this earlier. I've had anxiety my whole life. That's the moment I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, this calmness has taught me, like, I've kind of been like, ooh, like on edge a lot of my life. And so what's interesting though, is I had these mind boggling breakthroughs. I was not able to replicate that day, like over and over. I've since gotten better at like experiencing more of that state, but I kept moving forward and my mind got quieter. I got better. And then an interesting thing happened. I got to 66 days. I passed it by a few, say day 70. And I don't remember what was going on in my life, but I just stopped. I just didn't meditate. And then I was frustrated with myself. I'm like, what the heck? Like, why in the world did I stop? What the heck? And I got negative. And then I noticed my brain was like, nope. How about we be done with this habit? And so usually I would have doubled down on myself and said, no, like get your butt back in there like we do in sport and go do it. But this time I was like, no, like, I don't know why, but I was like, I'm going to be curious this time. I need to figure out what's going on. And again, some of Tony Robbins' works had a lot of influence on me. And I was listening to something that time, and he said, hey, and I'd heard this before, this time it hit me more. He said, the brain does things for two reasons: to avoid pain, maximize pleasure. Like it's always doing that. It's always looking. And I don't know why, but I thought, could this be it? Could this be the reason why, like, I'm now falling short on my habits? And I started to look closer, and I started to look from the lens of like, what did I do to add pain? Did I do anything to add pleasure? And I quickly realized I didn't do anything to drive pleasure. None. I was just like, I'm going to do it because other people do it. It's not a great reason. It's not a highly purposeful reason. And so I did that. I didn't ever praise myself. Not once. Not once did I say, good job for showing up today to be better. Not once did I acknowledge the growth that I was making. And then on top of all that, my brain was literally just waiting for the one time that I made a mistake, because that's the way I'd learned. And when I made a mistake, I got frustrated. All I had done from the get-go is adding pain. If you don't position a habit and you're busy, a habit is pain to your brain. And then you come along, you don't praise it all. You expect perfection. Perfection is actually pain for your brain, because your brain knows that we're not capable of doing that. And so that's pain. And then you come along and you beat yourself up. I went 70 days straight of a world-class, life-altering habit. And I didn't give myself credit once. And all I did was criticize myself at day 70. It's no wonder that my brain was like, how about no on this habit? Now, at that moment, I started to realize, what if I changed the equation? Like, what if I went inward and I became about, how do I associate pleasure around this world-class, life-altering habit? What if I was intentional about making it highly enjoyable and eliminating the pain in my process? And that's when I started to realize there's key elements to this, right? And I call this the 3P free formula now. If you want to love a habit and feel free and have a flow to it, like having that magnet where you're pulled towards it, I call it pain-pleasure ratio, right? Everything in life in front of you has a pain-pleasure ratio. Most of the time, we associate more pain with it. So, I procrastinate. I would say, you probably don't. You've probably just associated more pain with this. So your brain's like, how about no? My whole goal became, how do we drive pleasure, minimize pain, see what happens. I just treated myself as a guinea pig. I'm like, hey, let's see what happens. We got nothing to lose. Like, let's just try it. And so I realized there's components. Like number one is priming. The first P is priming. I tell my clients, never start a habit until you know exactly why. I could call priming purpose too, but it's prime it by going through and saying, what are the benefits? What are the upsides? And with meditation, it's like, man, like world-class ability to focus, opportunity to get control of my nervous system, lower my nerves, lower my fear, drive my immune system. Like you can go down and you can find a laundry list of things that will change your life from meditation. I didn't mail this in. I wrote it down. I wrote down all the things. And it was more than just the basic element of what it was, like minimize stress. I was more like the ability to like show up with incredible energy, the ability to love what I do. I started to connect those things. And then I'll do this. I'll do this until my brain's like, oh my gosh, how cool is this? Like, why would we not do this? This will change our life. Check it out. And it's like 5 to 10 minutes a day. It doesn't make sense not to do it. That's pleasure. So brain starts to go, okay, like a magnet, let's go check this thing out. Now that's a critical component. Don't start until you have an intrigue, an interest. People often screw this up. They'll go New Year's resolutions. And I always say their problem is they're setting goals when they're drunk, which is not a good idea. But then they come along and they're like, okay, this is the year. I'm going to get in such good shape. That's okay. I don't mind that. Like, right. You could even go good shape so I can be a great father, feel good. But instead they go, oh, but I got to go on a diet. And your brain is sitting and listening going, how about we won't be going on a diet? That's not happening because diet is like pain to the brain. People don't even realize you're backing into a habit. And so we have to get that priming right. So your brain says, yes, please, let's move forward. Then the second P is plan. We often make the mistake of going, okay, this meditation thing, some of these world-class people do it 30 minutes. I'm about to do it for 30 minutes. I'm like, you don't want to meditate for 30 minutes when you first start. You don't have the skill set. It'll be 28 minutes of pain to your brain. It's like somebody out of shape going, they're so out of shape, they can't do anything, going to CrossFit right off the bat. Like, that's not a good idea. You won't walk for 2 weeks. And your brain the whole time will be going, I do not like this. But the thing is, we pride ourselves on as much as possible, as soon as possible, instead of going, there's a book by BJ Fogg called Tiny Habits, where he says, just start a little bit, just a baby amount, enough for you to follow through, find some enjoyment, learn your skill set around it. And that's what I believe in too. Is like with meditation, instead of that, max 5 minutes, find something that you can enjoy, that you can just follow, where you can find some success with it, build some momentum, because it's key that you take your plan and you look at it not like, how can I go as quickly as possible? How can I enjoy it as much as possible? How can I find this? And so it's like finding times that make sense versus like jamming them into the morning when you're not sleeping the night before. That's a bad idea. So we could talk more about that, but it's about driving pleasure through the plan. But the third P is one of my favorites. And it's different, it's quirky, but I would say praise. We have to praise our progress, right? We need to get in there. We need to diminish dwell time when we miss and be curious and find solutions. But when we follow through the very first day, I tell my clients, okay, celebrate and credit is what we do. Okay, I want you to very end, whatever you do to celebrate, you clap, you flex, you nod, you smile, you arms up, whatever it is that you like to do, we want to create a physiological change in the body where we can release feel-good hormones. We're almost hacking into our brain a little bit, but we're doing it for a world-class habit. So my choice is like, I like to clap like this and flex. And that is often like, oh man, this is good, right? So that's the first part, is celebrate. The credit part is equally or more important. And it'll tie back to your priming. I tell my people, say, that's where you clap, you flex, you go, ooh, and you get that going. And then you go, yep, that's one step closer to you fill in the gap. Calm in big moments, present with my kids, able to have the energy I want to live the days that I want to live. Whatever most intrigues you, inspires you, you insert it there. And two things are going to happen. Number one, the feel good part. Brain is always about associations. So the brain's going to go, okay, I feel good chemicals. What caused it? It's going to go, the breath work caused it. Let's keep doing that again. That's number one. You tying it to growth is also going to reinforce that same thing, because brain loves growth. But I also say confidence is really important. Belief is really important. Psychology is really important. So when we celebrate, we go, that's a step closer to becoming this person. You're building confidence too. People often come to me and they go, I don't have great confidence. And then I follow their patterns and their habits. And when they fall short, they crush themselves. When they follow through, they don't do anything. Well, we're not going to have great confidence. But as we create the right approach, what I found is my brain started to love my habit. And when it started to love my habit, doesn't matter what my schedule is, my brain's going to find my meditation in my day now.